Imagine walking into a casino and walking out with $15 million. Not over a lifetime, not over decades, but in just 6 months. And here's the crazy part. You didn't cheat. You didn't count cards. You didn't use any illegal tactics whatsoever. The casinos literally agreed to let you play under rules that gave you the advantage. This is the true story of Don Johnson, the man who pulled off one of the greatest legal heists in casino history. The setup. The year was 2010. America was still recovering from the devastating 2008 financial crisis. And nowhere was that pain felt more acutely than in Atlantic City. The gambling capital of the East Coast was hemorrhaging money. High rollers had vanished. The wealthy players who once flew in on private jets to drop millions at the tables had simply disappeared. Casino revenues were at record lows. The casinos were desperate, absolutely desperate for action. And that's when Don Johnson saw his opportunity. Now, Don Johnson wasn't some random gambler who got lucky. This man had spent his entire life preparing for this moment without even realizing it. Born in 1962 in Salem, Oregon, Johnson grew up around horse racing. As a kid, he helped his uncle take care of racehorses at the track. By 15, he was competing in races himself. When health problems ended his riding career, he didn't leave the gambling world. Instead, he went behind the scenes. By age 30, Johnson was managing Philadelphia Park, one of the largest racing and casino complexes in Pennsylvania. He then worked as a state gambling regulator in Oregon, Idaho, Texas, and Wyoming. The man knew the industry inside and out. But more importantly, he understood something most gamblers never grasp. The house always has an edge. Always. Unless you can change the rules of the game. The negotiation. Here's where Johnson's genius kicks in. In 2010, as casinos scrambled to attract high rollers, Johnson started making calls. But he wasn't calling to book a room or reserve a table. He was calling to negotiate. And what he negotiated was absolutely brilliant. First, he convinced the casinos to tweak the blackjack rules in his favor. Dealer must stand on soft 17. 6 decks instead of 8. He could resplit aces. He could double down on any cards. These changes might sound minor, but they dropped the house edge to an almost non-existent 0.263%. But that wasn't even the clever part. Johnson demanded a loss rebate. If he lost money during a visit, the casino would give him 20% of his losses back. Not 20% of lifetime losses. 20% of losses per trip. Now, casinos offer rebates to high rollers all the time. But there's usually a catch. You have to play for at least 12 hours. You have to bet a certain amount. There are always strings attached. Not for Johnson. His rebate had 0 play requirements. He could walk in, play a few hands, and if he lost more than $500,000, he'd get 20% back immediately. And the rebate reset every single day. Think about what this means mathematically. With the house edge at basically 0 and a 20% rebate on losses, Johnson wasn't playing a fair game. He was playing a game tilted in his favor. The casinos somehow convinced themselves this was still a good deal. They were so starved for high roller action that they couldn't see they were being set up. The execution. December 2010. Johnson walked into Caesars Atlantic City and sat down at a blackjack table. The maximum bet was $100,000 per hand. He started playing and winning. Within days, he had taken Caesars for over $4 million. The casino executives started to panic. When his winnings hit $4 million, they literally refused to refill the chip tray. They were done. Johnson simply shrugged and moved to his next target, Borgata. At Borgata, he played throughout December, March, and April of 2011. He walked away with $5 million. Same story, same strategy. The casino eventually realized what was happening and pulled his deal. But the biggest hit was yet to come. April 2011, Tropicana Casino. Johnson sat down for what would become a legendary 12-hour session. Picture this. A middle-aged man in a hoodie and red cap, betting $100,000 per hand. A crowd gathered outside the high roller area, trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening. Inside, pit bosses and security cameras watched every move. Johnson was catching an incredible hot streak. Then came the hand he remembers most vividly. He bet $100,000 and received 2 8s. He split them, doubling his bet to $200,000. 2 more 8s came up. He split again. Now $400,000 was on the line. The dealer gave him cards that allowed him to double down on all 4 hands. His total bet swelled to $800,000 on a single hand. The dealer drew 10, then another 10. Bust. Johnson won $800,000 in a single hand. No celebration. No excitement. He simply nodded and said, "Deal again." When that 12-hour marathon finally ended, Johnson had won $5.8 million. It remains the largest single-session loss in Tropicana's history. His total haul, $15.1 million from 3 casinos in just 6 months. The aftermath. The casinos were stunned. They investigated everything. They checked for card counting. They looked for cheating. They found nothing. Because there was nothing to find. Johnson had played completely fair. He just played under rules that he had negotiated, rules that the casinos themselves had agreed to. Caesars banned him immediately. Tropicana and Borgata removed the special rules they'd given him. His face was plastered across newspapers. Every casino in Atlantic City now knew who Don Johnson was. The president and CEO of Tropicana, Mark Gianantonio, who had personally approved Johnson's $100,000 betting limit, was fired. Tony Rodeo, who took over as CEO, later said, "He played flawlessly. He knew the right decision in every situation. But many blackjack players can do that." Johnson's real advantage was that he knew the gambling industry better than we did. He was better at playing against the casino than he was at playing blackjack. That quote says it all. The genius behind the win. So how did Johnson actually do it? It wasn't just luck. It wasn't just favorable rules. Johnson had used PhD mathematicians to calculate his optimal strategy. They determined his perfect quit points. When winning, he should walk away after hitting $2.4 million in profit. When losing, he should keep playing until he either recovered or hit the rebate threshold. With the 20% rebate and near-zero house edge, his expected win was about $125,000 per day. Add in the $50,000 in show-up money. The casinos paid him just to walk through the door, and Johnson had created a money-printing machine. The casinos thought they were offering standard high-roller perks. Johnson saw a mathematical arbitrage opportunity that would never come again. The legacy. Today, Don Johnson lives quietly in the same house in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. He didn't buy mansions or supercars with his winnings. He's still running his company, Heritage Development, which creates computer-assisted wagering systems for horse racing. But occasionally, he flies around the world on private jets. He parties with celebrities like John Bon Jovi and Charlie Sheen. He once threw a birthday party for Pamela Anderson in Las Vegas. He reportedly sprayed visitors at London clubs with the world's most expensive champagne. He's on blacklists at casinos worldwide. Some venues allow him in, but they make absolutely certain the odds are never in his favor again. That window of opportunity, that perfect storm of desperate casinos and favorable negotiations, closed forever. The dealers still talk about him. The pit bosses still remember those sessions. Casino executives still use his name as a cautionary tale about getting too desperate for high-roller action. Don Johnson didn't break any laws. He didn't use any technology. He didn't employ any secret system. He simply understood the mathematics of gambling better than the casinos did. He recognized a unique moment in history when the rules could be bent in his favor, and he negotiated like a master. In 5 months, this man legally took $15 million from a house, not by beating the game of blackjack, but by beating the game behind the game. That's the story of Don Johnson, the man who tricked casinos into letting him win, and they agreed to every single term.